All right, so let's imagine you're an entrepreneur and you've poured your heart and soul into building a luxury riverfront property in Ghana. You know, a dream project aimed at attracting diaspora investors.
Uh-huh.
Sounds pretty incredible, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that's exactly what Marvin Walker did, and today we're taking a deep dive into his story. We've got this fascinating YouTube interview with him as our source material, and let me tell you, his journey is a wild ride full of success setbacks and some pretty valuable lessons along the way.
Yeah, it's interesting. Walker's story really highlights just all the complexities of investing in a developing nation like Ghana. There's this incredible potential, a real hunger for high-quality development.
Yeah.
But it definitely comes with its own set of challenges.
Yeah, and so who is Marvin Walker? Well, he's originally from Guyana, raised in the U.S.,
Uh-huh.
and he's got this incredibly diverse background in music and logistics. Talk about a multi-talented guy. He made the move to Ghana back in 2018 and quickly transitioned into real estate in 2018 with this mission to build top-notch properties for the diaspora community. His flagship project is called Shark Island, this ambitious riverfront development with luxury homes and condos.
Yeah, it's a savvy move,
Yeah.
tapping into that growing desire among the diaspora, particularly African-American,
Yeah.
to reconnect with their heritage and invest back in the continent.
Yeah.
But Walker's vision goes beyond just bricks and mortar. He's creating a whole lifestyle experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're talking condos, a rooftop pool, and bar jet car rentals, can you imagine? And even an overwater obstacle course. Plus, he's strategically partnered with companies like Afrofuture and Beyond the Crowd. They handle concierge services and ensure high occupancy rates for those investor-owned units. It's like he's building a mini paradise.
Yeah, and that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. Because beneath this glossy surface, there are some real challenges that Walker had to overcome. He talks about this pretty intense encounter with a local police chief, an incident that landed him in jail. And this really brings up this critical issue for foreign investors, that being the potential for corruption and the lack of accountability that can sometimes exist.
Yeah, and he doesn't sugarcoat it. At one point in the interview, Walker says, "There's no consequences unless somebody murders." That's a pretty chilling statement. Makes you wonder, what happens when you find yourself on the wrong side of someone with power in a system like that?
Exactly, it raises these important questions
Yeah.
about how power dynamics play out in these contexts and the vulnerabilities that foreign investors can face. If you're coming from a system where the rule of law is generally upheld, navigating an environment where those lines are blurred can be incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. And it sounds like this wasn't just a random incident. Walker talks about this feeling of being targeted, almost like his success was breeding resentment and jealousy among some locals. He even shares an anecdote about the police chief trying to extort money from him. And when he refused, things escalated pretty quickly.
This is where understanding the cultural context becomes so important. In many African cultures, there's a strong emphasis on communal wealth and a sense that success should be shared. So when someone comes in and achieves rapid financial success, it can create friction, especially if it's perceived as being at the expense of the local community.
So how do you navigate that? How do you protect yourself and your investments when you're dealing with these complex social dynamics?
Well, Walker's response to this situation is fascinating. He demonstrates this incredible resilience and resourcefulness. He tells this wild story about being arrested on trumped-up charges, thrown in jail, and even facing the threat of violence from inmates who had been paid off to rough them up. It's like something out of a movie.
Okay, that's intense. I can't even imagine being in that situation. So what did he do? How did he get out of that mess?
He relied on a combination of street smarts and financial savviness. Instead of panicking, he did something quite clever. He bought food for everyone in the jail, essentially using his financial resources to defuse the situation. He even went a step further and secured military protection for his property once he was released. Talk about thinking on your feet.
Now, that's impressive. It sounds like his military background might have played a role here. You know, that whole starter versus finisher mentality, refusing to back down from a challenge.
Yeah, it's clear that he wasn't going to let this incident derail his vision. And what I find particularly inspiring is how Walker approached the financing of this entire venture. He didn't rely on bank loans or seek out big investors. He essentially bootstrapped the entire project. Now, that takes guts, wouldn't you say?
Whoa, hold on a second. Bootstrapping a luxury real estate development? How is that even possible? Building something like that requires serious capital.
He had a very specific strategy. He used what's called a loss leader approach. Essentially, he offered discounts to buyers who are willing to pay for their units up front. This allowed him to generate a steady stream of cash flow to fund the ongoing construction and development without taking on debt or giving away equity.
So he's essentially using the pre-sales to fuel the project as he goes along. It's incredibly clever. But still, to get those initial buyers on board, he must have needed some serious starting capital.
He did, and this is where his story gets even more fascinating. To fund the very first phase of the project, the initial land clearing and groundwork, Walker actually sold all of his cars. Now that's dedication.
Wow, that's a real testament to his belief in this vision. He was willing to put everything on the line to make it happen. But this brings up an important question for our listener. What can we learn from Walker's experience? What are the practical takeaways here for anyone considering investing in Ghana or any developing country?
Walker's story is full of valuable lessons. One of the biggest red flags he highlights is the risk associated with land ownership. He emphasizes that you should never pay the full amount for land up front. Always involve a lawyer, do your due diligence, and make sure you understand the complexities of the legal system before making any commitments.
That's crucial advice. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of a project and overlook these legal details, but they can really come back to bite you.
Absolutely. And beyond the legal aspects, there's the cultural context to consider. Walker learned the hard way that things don't always move at the same pace in Ghana as they might in the US or Europe. Consultation is highly valued, relationships matter, and you need to be prepared to adapt to a different way of doing business.
So patience and flexibility are key. It's not just about having a great idea and the money to back it up. It's about understanding the local environment and being able to navigate the cultural nuances.
Precisely. And as Walker's experience with the police chief shows, you also need to be prepared for the unexpected. Challenges will arise, setbacks are inevitable, and you need to have the resilience to bounce back and keep moving forward.
It's a lot to take in, but incredibly valuable information. I mean, Walker's story is both inspiring and a bit of a cautionary tale. He's achieved remarkable things, but it's clear that success in this environment requires a unique set of skills, a certain level of awareness, and a whole lot of grit. So what does all of this mean for you, our listener? What are your takeaways from Walker's experience so far? Keep those thoughts in mind as we continue to unpack his story in part 2 of this deep dive.
Welcome back. So before we pause, we were really getting deep into Marvin Walker's Ghanaian real estate venture, using it as a lens to kind of examine the bigger picture of investing in developing countries. What struck me is how Walker's story really embodies this trend that we're seeing, the so-called great migration of the diaspora back to Africa.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? Walker even mentions this movement in the interview, this idea of African Americans in particular feeling this pull to return to the continent, investing, building businesses, reconnecting with their roots. But as his story so vividly illustrates, it's not always this seamless homecoming. There are those cultural nuances to navigate, complex land ownership issues to untangle, and as we discussed, the ever-present risk of corruption.
Right, and this is where due diligence becomes absolutely crucial for any potential investor. You can't just have this romanticized vision of returning to Africa. You need to do your homework, understand the local laws and customs, and just be prepared for the on-the-ground realities. It's about balancing that emotional pull with a pragmatic approach.
Okay, so let's get practical. Based on Walker's experience, what are some red flags investors should be watching out for? What are those must-know details to avoid those costly mistakes?
Well, first and foremost, as we've touched upon, land ownership is a huge issue in Ghana. Walker's story highlights the golden rule. Never pay the full amount for land up front. There's always a risk of disputes, multiple claims to the same piece of land, or even outright fraud. It's a minefield for the uninitiated. There are layers of traditional customary laws that intersect with modern legal frameworks, creating this really complex web to untangle.
He mentions that he learned from previous experiences to only make a down payment and to have a lawyer involved in every single step of the process. For our listener, that sounds like non-negotiable advice.
Absolutely. And even with those precautions, it's still not foolproof. Walker still encountered court battles and individuals attempting to claim his land. It underscores the need for patience and a willingness to navigate the legal system, which can be slow and, let's be honest, frustrating.
So it's not a place for the impatient investor. What about cultural differences? What are some things diaspora investors need to be aware of when doing business in Ghana? Specifically, things that might catch them off guard.
One thing Walker emphasizes is the importance of consultation. In Ghanaian culture, decisions are rarely made unilaterally. There's this strong emphasis on collective decision-making, involving elders, community leaders, and various stakeholders. It's not always a quick transactional process.
That makes sense given the communal aspect of many African cultures. He talks about adapting his approach, learning to build relationships, show respect to elders.
Yeah,
and just accept that things might not move at the breakneck speed he was accustomed to.
And that can be a tough adjustment for someone coming from
A
more individualistic, fast-paced business culture. But it's essential to adapt to these local customs and understand that building trust is a fundamental part of doing business in Ghana. Rushing into things can backfire spectacularly.
It's about building bridges, not just buildings. Speaking of challenges, let's revisit that police incident. It's obviously a worst-case scenario, but it raises serious questions about personal safety and security for foreign investors.
Yeah, it's a harsh reminder that corruption exists in many developing countries. While it's not something you want to fixate on, you need to be aware of the potential risks and take steps to mitigate them. This isn't about living in fear, but about being informed and prepared.
Walker talked about being resourceful, using his money to buy food for other inmates, and ultimately securing his release. It sounds like he was able to leverage his financial resources to navigate a very difficult and potentially dangerous situation.
Yeah, it highlights an important point. Having that financial cushion, access to legal support, and a network of trusted contacts can be invaluable in a crisis. It's not just about having a great business plan. It's about having a plan B and maybe even a plan C for when things go sideways.
But even with those safeguards, it sounds incredibly stressful. He mentions feeling targeted, facing extortion attempts, and just dealing with constant harassment. That takes a certain kind of personality to handle.
You know, resilience is absolutely key, and it sounds like Walker has that in spades. He's a fighter, resourceful, and not easily intimidated. He didn't let this incident break him.
Yeah.
He used it as fuel to keep pushing forward. That kind of tenacity is inspiring.
It makes you think about the psychological toll of doing business in such a challenging environment. It's not just the financial risks. It's the emotional and mental fortitude required to handle uncertainty, corruption, and potential threats. It's not for everyone.
It's a lot to handle, no doubt, and that's why it's so crucial to go in with your eyes wide open, have realistic expectations, and just be prepared for things to go off script. Flexibility and adaptability are your best friends in this kind of environment.
So we've talked extensively about the challenges, but let's shift gears for a moment and focus on the positive aspects of Walker's story. Because despite all the obstacles he's encountered, he's achieved some remarkable things. It's not all doom and gloom.
Right? He's built a thriving business, created jobs for the local community, and developed a property that's drawing in investors from the diaspora. He's living proof that it's possible to overcome those challenges and create something truly special in Ghana. He's turned a vision into reality.
And he did it all without relying on traditional bank loans or seeking out external investors. He bootstrapped the entire project using his own ingenuity and financial savviness. That's a feat in itself.
His loss leader strategy, as we discussed earlier, was particularly clever. By offering those discounts for upfront payments, he was able to generate the capital he needed to keep the project moving forward. He found a way to make the system work for him.
It's a reminder that entrepreneurial success often requires thinking outside the box, taking calculated risks, and having an unwavering belief in your vision. You have to be willing to bet on yourself.
And it's also a testament to Walker's ability to inspire others. He's managed to attract buyers, secure partnerships, and build a team of people who believe in his vision. That's a powerful thing.
That entrepreneurial energy is contagious. And it's clear that he's deeply passionate about this project. It's more than just a business venture for him. It's about creating something meaningful for the diaspora, a place where they can reconnect with their heritage and contribute to the future of Africa.
It's about building a legacy that extends beyond himself.
Yeah.
And that resonates with people. It's about making a difference, not just making a profit. It's about contributing to something larger than yourself.
So let's pause here for a moment and let all of this sink in for our listener. What are your key takeaways from this part of our deep dive? What aspects of Walker's approach resonate with you the most? What lessons, both positive and negative, can you extract from his experiences?
Hold on to those thoughts as we move into the final part of our deep dive, where we'll wrap up our analysis and explore the broader implications of this fascinating case study.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Marvin Walker's journey, building Shark Island in Ghana. It's been a roller coaster ride, hasn't it?
Yeah.
We've gone from these luxurious riverfront properties to the stark realities of a Ghanaian jail cell.
Yeah, and what's striking is how Walker's experiences, both good and bad, so perfectly illustrate the complexities of investing in a developing country. It's a landscape full of potential pitfalls and incredible opportunities.
Yeah, we've seen this incredible potential for growth in Ghana, this desire among the diaspora to connect with their heritage, and the chance to build something truly unique and impactful.
But we've also seen the flip side, the challenges of navigating land ownership, the importance of understanding and respecting cultural differences, and that looming risk of corruption.
Yeah, it's a tightrope walk, isn't it? Balancing the excitement of those potential rewards with the awareness of very real risks.
And that's precisely why Walker's story is so valuable. It's a real-world case study packed with practical insights and hard-won wisdom. It's almost like a masterclass in navigating the intricacies of investing in a developing nation.
So let's boil it down for our listener. If you're considering taking the plunge and investing in a developing country, what are the absolute must-dos based on Walker's experience? What are the key takeaways we should be walking away with?
Well, first and foremost, you can never skimp on due diligence. You need to go beyond those glossy brochures and promises of quick returns. It's about digging deeper, researching the local market, understanding the legal and regulatory environment, and actually spending time on the ground to get a feel for the place.
Walker was adamant about having a good lawyer on your team, someone who understands the intricacies of the local legal system and can help you navigate those potential pitfalls, someone who can be your advocate and guide.
Absolutely. It's an investment that can save you a world of trouble down the line. And never underestimate the importance of building relationships. Take the time to connect with local communities, understand their needs and perspectives, and build trust. It's not just about ticking boxes, it's about establishing genuine connections.
He also stressed the importance of being financially savvy, of having a strategy that goes beyond just securing initial funding. Walker's loss leader approach, offering discounts for those upfront payments, was a brilliant way to bootstrap the project and maintain momentum, without relying heavily on loans or giving up equity.
It's a classic example of entrepreneurial resourcefulness. He found a creative way to generate cash flow and fund the development in a challenging environment. It's a testament to his ability to think outside the box and adapt to the circumstances.
And let's not forget that resilience factor. Walker faced major setbacks, extortion attempts, legal battles, even jail time. But he never wavered in his commitment to his vision. He faced each challenge head-on, adapted, persevered, and ultimately achieved success.
It speaks volumes about his character and determination. He embodies that entrepreneurial spirit of never giving up, even when the odds are stacked against you. It's a powerful reminder that setbacks are inevitable, but it's how you respond to them that truly defines your journey.
So where does this leave you, our listener? Maybe you're feeling inspired by Walker's story, eager to explore development opportunities in Ghana or other developing countries. Or perhaps you're feeling a bit more cautious, aware of the complexities and potential risks involved.
Whatever your takeaway, the key is to approach this with a balanced perspective. Don't let the allure of potential rewards blind you to the very real challenges. But don't let those challenges deter you from exploring those incredible opportunities. It's about informed optimism.
Walker's story is a reminder that investing in developing countries is not for the faint of heart. It requires a unique blend of entrepreneurial spirit, cultural sensitivity, adaptability, and a willingness to embrace the unknown. It's not a guaranteed path to riches, but a journey of growth, learning, and potentially making a real difference.
And for those who are up for the challenge, the rewards can be immense, not just financial rewards, but the satisfaction of contributing to something bigger than yourself, of building a legacy that positively impacts communities and leaves a lasting mark on the world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we leave you with this final thought. What resonates with you most from Walker's story? What questions has it sparked in your mind? And most importantly, what actions will you take based on what you've learned? Investing in developing countries is a complex and multifaceted endeavor, but with careful planning, a spirit of adventure, and a belief in the power of human potential, it's a journey that can yield incredible rewards.